You ever had a moment where things were actually going right? Like you finally got into a routine, you were saving a little, you turned down something you couldn't really afford, and for a moment you thought, okay, this is it, I'm figuring this out. And then something happened. Maybe you blew the savings on something that didn't matter. Maybe you stopped the routine for no real reason. Maybe right at the point where it was working, you found a way to mess it up. And you couldn't explain why, because you didn't want to fail. You weren't trying to destroy it, you actually wanted it to work. So why did part of you pull the plug? That right there, that's self-sabotage, and it is one of the most misunderstood things in money psychology. Welcome back to the Money Psychology Files, and today we're going deep on why smart, capable people undermine themselves, especially when they're doing well. Because it's not weakness, it's wiring, and once you understand it, you can actually change it. Let's get into it. So first, let's clear something up. Self-sabotage doesn't always look dramatic. It's not always blowing $10,000 on a night out or quitting your job for no reason. Sometimes it's quieter than that. It's not opening the banking app because you don't want to see the number. It's canceling the gym membership you were actually using. It's turning down a side project you would have been perfect for. It's ghosting the person who wanted to invest in your idea. Self-sabotage is any pattern of behavior where you work against your own best interests, usually right when things start to go well. And that timing is everything, because it's almost never when things are hard that we do this. It's when things are going right. You get the opportunity, you feel the momentum, and then something in you finds a way to slow it down, complicate it, or walk away from it entirely. The reason most people don't recognize it is because it never feels like self-sabotage in the moment. It feels like being careful, or realistic, or just tired. There's always a perfectly reasonable explanation for why you stopped, and that's exactly what makes it so tricky. Because you're not lying to yourself on purpose. You genuinely believe the excuse. That's the genius of it. Your brain wraps the self-destruction in the language of self-preservation. Okay, here's the part nobody really talks about, and I want you to sit with this. One of the biggest reasons people self-sabotage financially is because success starts to feel like a threat to who they believe they are. If you grew up in a household where money was always tight, where the story was, "We're not the kind of people who have a lot," then somewhere along the way, your brain took that in. It became part of your identity. Not consciously, not as a choice, but it settled into you. So when you start doing well, when the savings grow, when the business starts pulling, when things actually start to work, there's a part of your subconscious that panics because this version of you doesn't match the story you grew up with. And your brain, weirdly, finds that more uncomfortable than being broke. Psychologists call this identity threat. It's the internal conflict between who you're becoming and who you believe you're supposed to be. Think about Max. He grew up watching his parents stress about money every single month. Money equaled stress. It equaled arguments. It equaled uncertainty. So unconsciously, he linked being financially stable with feeling like a stranger, like it wasn't meant for him. So the moment things started working, he'd find a reason to slow down, not because he wanted to fail, but because success was unfamiliar, and familiar, even when it's uncomfortable, feels safe. Here's the wild thing. Studies in cognitive psychology show that people will consistently return to their baseline level of self-perception, even when external success says they should feel better. It's called identity homeostasis, your brain's need to stay consistent with who it thinks you are. And until you update that internal identity, your behavior will keep finding ways to confirm the old story. So let me show you what this actually looks like in real life. Because self-sabotage has patterns, and once you see yours, you can't unsee it. Pattern 1. The emergency exit. This is where things are going well, and suddenly, everything is a crisis. The car needs fixing, someone needs something, there's an emergency that conveniently empties the savings account that was just starting to grow. It's not that emergencies aren't real. It's that when you're in a self-sabotage pattern, your brain unconsciously makes them feel more urgent than they are. The money has to go, because having it felt too foreign. Pattern 2. The comfort return. This is where you had a plan. You were being disciplined, and then one hard week made you abandon it entirely. Not take a break, not adjust, fully abandon. And when you start again, you start from zero. Not because the plan didn't work, but because the discomfort of growing triggered a retreat to what felt normal. Old habits, old spending, old version of you. Pattern 3. The success ceiling. This one is subtle. You make progress, real progress, and then right before a breakthrough, you introduce chaos. You pick a fight. You make a bad financial decision. You quit the thing that was working. It's like you have an invisible ceiling for how much success you're allowed to have. And the moment you get close to it, you find a way to pull yourself back down. All 3 of these patterns have the same root. They're not stupidity. They're not weakness. They're your nervous system keeping you inside a version of yourself that feels recognizable, even when that version is limiting you. Here's the good news, and there is genuinely good news here. Self-sabotage is not a character flaw. It's a learned behavior that developed to protect you, and anything learned can be unlearned. Not easily and not overnight, but genuinely unlearned. The first step is recognizing your specific pattern. Are you an emergency exit person, a comfort return person, a success ceiling person, or maybe all 3 at different times? Because you can't interrupt a pattern you haven't named yet. The second step is something I call building a new normal. The reason success feels uncomfortable is because it's unfamiliar. So the work is to stay in the discomfort, not push through it violently, but just stay. Let the savings sit. Don't manufacture a reason to spend it. Let the momentum build for one more week than you usually would. You're not just growing financially, you're expanding what feels familiar to you. The third step is updating the story you tell about yourself. Not with fake positivity, your brain will reject that immediately, but with evidence. Every time you don't sabotage, you create a new data point. Every week you stay in the routine, you write a slightly different chapter. Identity changes through action first, the feeling follows after. And the fourth step, and this is the one most people skip, is getting honest about who you're surrounded by. If everyone around you has the same financial ceiling, the same patterns, the same story about money, that environment is constantly reinforcing the old identity, not because they're bad people, but because human beings are deeply influenced by their reference group. Sometimes the work of changing your financial identity starts with expanding who you spend time around. Here's what I want you to take from today. If you've ever been doing well and then watched yourself mess it up, you are not broken, you are not weak, you are not cursed. You have a pattern, and patterns can change. The reason you self-sabotage is not because you secretly want to fail. It's because part of you is still holding on to an old version of yourself that was built before you knew better. And now that you know that, now that you can name it, you have something you didn't have before. You have the ability to pause before the pattern kicks in. That pause is where your life actually changes. Next episode, we're going into something I get a lot of questions about, the psychology of debt. Not the numbers, not the interest rates, but why debt feels different to different people, why some people are terrified of it and others barely feel it, and what that emotional relationship is actually costing you. That one's going to hit. If today resonated, if you saw yourself in any of those patterns, drop a comment and tell me which one. emergency exit, comfort return, success ceiling? I genuinely want to know, and I read every single one. Subscribe if you're not already. This is a channel about real money psychology. No fake flexing, no boring spreadsheets, just honest conversations about why we do what we do with money and how to do it better. I'll see you in the next one.